What's up, everybody? I'm Zombie Cat,
And I'm Skull.
and this is the Horror Den. Today, we are back on r/no sleep once again, reading a very scary story called Something Walks Whistling Past My House Every Night at 3:03. So, I always gotta ask, what do you think this is gonna be about?
Well, I think it's right there in the title. Something walks past your house at 3:03 whistling.
But
Now, whether
give me
or
some
not
predictions.
Okay, well, it might be a ghost. That's pretty on the nose, or it could be a stalker story. That would also be pretty creepy. That's just kind of like the best two guesses I got, just offhand without any context. But just reading right here, this is by Grand Theft Motto, or Motto, whichever. But this was voted the scariest story of 2019, most immersive story of 2019, and it was posted November of 2019.
Well, I'll say, like, our last story, they paid me $5,000 to go through hell, is more like a psychological horror. This one's straight up pretty damn scary, so
Okay.
buckle up. This one's good. So yeah, Grand Theft Motto, something walks whistling past my house every night at 3:03.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Every night, no matter the weather, something walks down our street whistling softly. You can only hear it if you're in the living room or the kitchen when they walk by, and it always starts at exactly 3:03. The sound sounds faint, somewhere near the beginning of the lane near the Carson place. We're towards the middle of the street, so the whistling moves past us before fading away in the direction of the cul-de-sac. When I was younger, my sister and I would sneak into the kitchen some nights to listen. Mom and Dad didn't like that, and we'd catch hell if they found us out there. But they were never too hard on us since we were always stuck to the one big rule: don't try to look at whatever was whistling. My neighborhood is a funny place. I've lived here since I was 6 and I love it. The houses are small but well kept, good sized yards, plenty of places to roam. There are a lot of other kids my age. I turned 13 back in October. We grew up together and would always play foursquare in the cul-de-sac or roam around the back porch to back porch in the summer. This was a good place to grow up. I'm old enough to see it, and there's only two strange things here: the night whistling and the good luck.
The whistling never bothered me much. Like I said, I couldn't even hear it from my bedroom. But Mom and Dad don't like talking about it. So I've stopped asking questions. My dad is a strong guy, tall and calm. He has an accent since he moved to the US as a kid. His family, my grandparents, they're from the islands. That's what they call it. My dad, the only time he isn't so calm is if the whistler comes up. He talks a little quicker then. Eyes move faster, and he tells us not to think about it so much, and to always remember the one rule, the big rule: don't try to look outside when the whistler goes past. Not that we could look even if we wanted to. See, there are shutters on the inside of every window, thick pieces of heavy canvas that pull down from the top and latch to the bottom of the window frame. Each latch even has a small lock, about the size of what you'd find on a diary. My dad locks those shutters every night before we all go to bed and keeps the key in his room. My mom, I don't know what she thinks about the whistling. I've seen her out in the living room before at 3:03 when the sound starts. I could see her if I cracked my door open just an inch to peek. She's not out there often, at least I haven't caught her much, but once or twice a month I think she sits out there on our big red couch just listening. The whistle has the same tune every night. It's cheerful.
Remember how I said there are two odd things about where I live? Well, besides our night whistler, everyone in my neighborhood is really lucky. It's hard to explain, and Dad doesn't like us talking about this part much either, but good things just seem to happen to people around here a lot. Usually, it's small things, winning a radio contest, or getting an unexpected promotion at work, or finding some arrowheads buried in the yard. You know, the authentic kind. The weather is pretty good, and there's no crime, and everybody's gardens bloom extra bright in the fall. A million little blessings. I've heard my mom say about living here, but the main reason we stay here, why we moved here in the first place, is my sister Nola. She was born very sick, something with her lungs. We couldn't even bring her home when she was born, only visit her in the hospital. She was so small. I remember small even compared to the other babies. A machine had to breathe for her. We moved into our house here to be closer to the hospital. As soon as we moved here, Nola started getting better. The doctors couldn't figure it out. They chalked it up to whatever they were doing, but we all could tell they were confused. But my parents knew, even I knew, Nola getting better was just another of the million little blessings we got for living in our neighborhood. So that's why we stayed, even after we found out that for every small miracle that happens here, every day, now and then, some bad things happen, but they only happen if you look for the Whistler. So, what are you thinking? It's like, to me, it's like this town, it's almost like you're getting this fortune, but it's at the cost of almost like this curse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't want to delve too deeply into this while we're reading because
I have read this, by the way.
I don't want to break up the feeling that's going for our audience. But what I will say is it kind of feels like somebody made a deal.
Okay.
That's what it feels like.
The way it describes like a perfect neighborhood makes me think of like a Dr. Seuss story almost, like just like the Who's like living in the houses. Like it just seems like a perfect little town, but like as long as you don't break the kind of unspoken rule that everyone knows about.
This reminds me of something. Maybe it'll come to me. I can't think of it right now, but let's keep going. See, our neighborhood has a welcoming committee. They show up with macaroni casserole and a gift basket and a manila folder whenever someone new moves in. They're very friendly. 4 people showed up when we moved in 7 years ago. The committee made small talk, gave me a Snickers bar, and took turns holding Nola. It was her first week out of the hospital, so they were extra careful. Then the committee asked to speak with my parents in private, so I was sent to my room where I still managed to hear nearly every word. The welcoming committee told my parents about how nice the neighborhood was, really exceptionally hard to explain kind of nice. And then they told my parents about the even harder to explain whistling that happened every morning at 3:03 and ended at the tick of 3:05. The group, our new neighbors, warned my parents that the whistling was quiet, would never harm or hurt us as long as we didn't look for whatever was making the sound. This part they stressed, and I pushed my ear into the door, straining to hear them. People who went looking for the whistler had their luck change, sometimes tragically. A black cloud would hang over anyone that looked. Anything that could go wrong would. The manila envelope the committee brought over contained newspaper clippings, stories about car crashes and ruined lives, public deaths, and freak accidents. Not everyone dies, I heard the committee tell my dad, but the life goes out of them. Even if they live, there's no light in them ever again, no presence. My mom, I could tell she wasn't taking it seriously. She kept asking them if this was some prank they pull on new neighbors. At one point, my mom got angry, accused the committee of trying to scare us out of our new home, asked them if they were racist on account of my dad being from the islands. My dad calmed her down, told her he could tell our new neighbors were sincere and they were just trying to help us. He explained that he grew up hearing these kinds of stories from his mom, and that he knew there were strange things that walked among us. Some of those strange things were good, and some were bad, but most were just different. After the committee left, Dad went out to the hardware store, bought the canvas blinds, the latches, and the locks, and installed them on every window in the house after dinner. The first night in our new house, I crept out of my room at 3 a.m., only to find my dad awake sitting on the living room couch, holding my baby sister. My dad held up his finger in the shh motion, but patted the couch next to him. I sat, and we waited. At exactly 3:03, we heard the whistling.
It came and it went, just like our neighbors said. The whistling returns each night, and we never look, and we enjoy our million little blessings every day. Nola breathes on her own, and she's grown into a strong, clever girl. My dad even joined the welcoming committee. We don't get new neighbors often. Why would anyone want to leave? But when a new family moves in, my dad and the committee bring the macaroni casserole, a gift basket, and the manila folder. I can always tell by the look on my dad's face when he comes back if the family took the committee seriously or if we'd be getting new neighbors again very soon. Not long ago, a family moved in directly next to us. The previous owner, Miss Maddie, passed away at age 105. She'd lived a long, good life. Long life. Our new neighbors seemed like they'd fit just fine. They believed the welcoming committee, took my dad's advice about locking the shutters since they had a young child of their own. Whatever newspaper clippings were in that manila envelope, whatever evidence my dad never let us see, but I imagine it must have been awfully convincing since our neighbors got along with no issues for the first month. One night, when our new neighbors had to leave town, they sent their son Holden to stay with us. He was 12, a year under me in school. I didn't know him well before that night, but as soon as his parents dropped him off after dinner, I could tell it was going to be a bad time. Do you know who is always out there whistling every night? Holden asked the moment the adults left the room. The three of us were sitting in the den with some Disney movie playing idly on television. My sister and I exchanged glances. We don't talk about that, I said. I think it's that weirdo that lives in the big yellow house on the corner, Holden said. Mr. Tolles? My sister asked. No way, he's really nice, Holden shrugged. Must be a psycho killer then, Nola tensed. We don't talk about it, I repeated. Let's go into my room and play Nintendo. I'd be like, bro, chill out, bro. We gonna go just play some video games. We ain't messing with this tonight.
No, you would be the one that wants to know who's whistling outside on the
I would be
street.
curious, but if it's been this long and you're having this much luck, I'd be like, okay, I'm believing, you know.
He
like,
claims he's not a believer.
Oh, I'm not. But if I had proof like this,
Well, this ain't proof. Have we seen one shred of proof?
the good luck. The lady living to 105. His sister can breathe on her own without the doctors.
Where's your tangible evidence, Zombie Cat? Where's your touching? How do you know that these paper clippings are real?
I still feel like this would freak me out enough, but the good would be so good that I'd be like, why risk it? You know?
I'd like for you to put a dunce hat on him. Insert dunce hat upon Zombie Cat, please, my lad.
You are made of stupid.
We spent the next few hours playing games, eating popcorn, then watching movies. A typical sleepover, but I could see Holden was getting antsy. After my parents had wished us a good night, locked the blinds, and gone to bed, Holden stood up from his beanbag and walked over to where Nola and I were sitting in bed. Have you even tried looking? He asked. It's nearly time. Like most sleepovers, we'd conveniently ignored any suggestion of bedtime. I was shocked to see he was right. It was almost 3 a.m. I sighed. We don't. See, I can't even try to look because my dad locks the blinds every night and hides the key. He continued ignoring me. "So does our dad," said Nola. "No," replied Holden. "No, he doesn't." "You saw him do it?" I said a little sharper than I meant to sound. Holden grinned. "Your dad locks the blinds, yeah, but he doesn't hide the key. He keeps it right on his normal keychain." "So?" I asked, worried I already knew what he would say next because I had noticed that my dad didn't bother hiding the key anymore after all of these years because he knew we took it seriously. "So after your dad locked up before your parents went to bed, I went to the bathroom, and on my way I may have peeked into their room, and I may have seen your dad's keychain on his nightstand. I maybe went and borrowed the key to the blinds." You idiot. I hate Holden. You idiot.
Holden is every white person in a slasher movie.
For real.
Let's go check out that noise.
Dude, we gotta go see this dude. Nola and I stared, and his grin only grew wider. "You're lying," I said. Holden shrugged. "You can check if you want. Just open your parents' door and look. You'll see his keychain right there on the nightstand." "Stay here," I told both of them. "Don't move a muscle." I hurried over to my parents' room, but hesitated at the door. If Holden wasn't lying, my dad would be very angry. Beyond angry. I was scared thinking about it, but more scared of an open window with the whistler right outside. I opened the door barely an inch and looked in, but it was too dark to see. Taking a deep breath, I walked into the room.
2 steps into the dark, I froze. The whistling started, and I could hear it clearly from my parents' room. I never realized, but they must have heard the sound every night since we moved into the house. They never told us. I don't think I could have slept through it.
That's so haunting. Imagine just laying in bed every night and you just hear that
Mhm.
walking. Oh, that's spooky. I hate that.
I stood there, listening to the whistling come closer, unsure whether I should turn on a light or call out my dad. Soft sounds from the living room brought me back to reality. "Nola!" I yelled, running out of my parents' room. Holden and Nola were standing near the front door next to a window. Holden wasn't lying. I could see him fumbling with the lock on one of the blinds. I heard a click. He did have the key. Holden let out a quick laugh. Nola stood next to him, hunched up, afraid, but maybe curious. The whistling was right outside our house now. I think I made a sound, called out, I can't remember. Time felt frozen. Found myself moving. I'm not fast. I've never been athletic. Somehow, though, I covered the space between myself and Nola in a moment. My eyes were locked on her, but I heard Holden pull the blinds all the way down so it could release. I heard the snap of it start to wrap. Boop. My eyes were locked on her, but I heard Holden pull the blinds all the way down so it could release. I heard the snap of it start to rise, and I heard the whistling just on the other side of the window. But I had my arms around Nola, and I turned us so she was facing away from the window. At the same time, I jammed my eyes shut. The blinds whipped open. The whistling stopped.
One last time before stuff goes down. I hate Holden. You were an idiot, dude. You're going over to somebody else's house, and they're like, "Bro, let's look at the whistler,
Come
dude.
risk your life with me."
Your sister kind of can't breathe on her own, you know. So let's risk that." I hate him. Okay.
The blinds whipped open. The whistling stopped. I felt Nola shaking in my arms. "Don't look, okay?" I told her. "Don't turn around." We were positioned so that she was facing back towards the hallway, and I was facing the windows. My eyes were still closed. I felt her nod into my shoulder. I reached out with the arm not holding Nola and tried to touch Holden. My hand brushed against his arm. He was shaking, worse than Nola. "Holden?" I asked. Silence.
I reached past him and gingerly felt for the window, eyes still sealed shut. The glass was cold against my fingertips, colder than it should have been for this time of year. I moved my hand up the window, searching for the string to the blind. The glass began to get warmer the further I reached, and there was a gentle hum feeding back into my fingertips. I tried not to think about what might be on the other side of that window. Finally, I touched the string and yanked the blind shut. I opened my eyes. In the dim light leaking out from the kitchen, I could make out Holden, pale and small, staring at the now closed window. "Holden?" I asked again. He turned towards me and he screamed. Everything became a flurry of motion. Lights sparkled to life in the hall. Then the living room. My parents' footsteps thudded across the hardwood floor. I didn't turn to look back at them. My eyes were glued to Holden. He was pale, had bit his lips so hard that there was a thin red line of blood running down his chin and he'd wet himself. "What happened?" my dad asked from behind me. I managed to swivel away from Holden and look back. He looked. I'd never seen my dad scared before, but I saw it that night. In that moment, an old, ugly terror stitched on his face, a parent's fear. "Just Holden?" he mouthed to me. I nodded yes. My dad let out a breath. He looked so relieved I nearly expected him to cheer. But then he turned to Holden, and my dad's face changed. I wonder if he felt bad for feeling good that Holden was the only one that looked. There was a knock at the door. We all froze. Holden whimpered. "Don't answer it," my mom said. She stood at the threshold of the hall. I'd always thought she was a skeptic and just humored my dad about the windows and the whistler, but that night we were all believers. I noticed that both my parents held baseball bats they must have taken from their bedroom. The knock came again, a little louder this time. "Please, don't open the door," Holden whispered. My dad walked over to him, hugged him close. "We won't," my dad promised, still holding the bat. "Nothing is coming in here tonight." Thum, thum, thum. This time the knocking was loud enough to rattle the door. Holden screamed again and Nola clutched her arms around my neck. My mom came over and knelt down next to us, wrapping my sister and me close. "Boom, boom, boom. Call the police," my mom whispered to my dad. The knocking instantly stopped. My dad looked over his shoulder at us. "Do you think..." He was cut off by a frantic knocking that trailed off to a polite "Police!" something said from the other side of the door. The voice from outside sounded exactly like my mom, like a parrot repeating the words back to her. "Police! Call the police! Police!" My mom pulled us closer. "Police! Police! 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 Please stop," I heard her whisper. "I don't think calling them will help," my dad said. "I don't think calling them will help," my dad said. "How will we know when they're the ones at the door?" The knocking came back harder than before. The door shook, then it stopped. After a long moment, I heard the knocking again, but it was coming from our back door.
We all turned together towards the back door, but the knocking immediately returned to the front door. Front to back, back to front. Loud, then quiet, then loud again. Suddenly, the sound was coming from both doors at once. Big, heavy blows like a sledgehammer. Then something started rapping against all of the windows in the house, then the walls. I need a second. Sorry, it said from the windows, then the walls. And I wanted to say, and the sweat dripped down my balls. Okay?
I was like, what?
Sorry, that was just perfect timing. That author knew what he was doing. Then something started rapping against all the windows in the house, then the walls. It was like we were living inside of a drum with a dozen people trying to play at once. Or we were a turtle and something was trying to claw us out of our shell. "Stop!" Holden yelled. The knocking died. "I won't tell," Holden said, staring at the door. "I promise I won't tell anyone what I saw. Just please go away." We waited for nearly a minute. Then we heard it. A soft tap, tap, tap coming from the window Holden had looked out of earlier. Holden started to cry, sobbing like a prisoner watching gallows being built outside their cell. My dad held him, brushed his hair, but never lied to him. Never told him things would be okay. The tapping at the window went for the rest of the night. We huddled together in the living room for I don't know how long. Eventually, my mom tried to take us kids into my room while my dad stayed to watch the door. But the second we moved into my bedroom, the knocking came back, so loud it was impossible to ignore. I was afraid the door couldn't take it. We went back to the living room and the knocking stopped. Only the tap, tap, tap on the window remained. None of us slept that night. The tapping stopped around 7 a.m. That's about the time the sun comes up here. We waited another 2 hours before my dad opened the blinds from one window. He made us all go back to my parents' bedroom first. I heard him open the door, then come back in. "Okay," he told us. "It's done." Holden's parents came back around lunchtime. My mom and dad walked Holden over to his house. They all went inside for quite a while. Nola and I watched from the window. She stuck to me the whole day, right at my side, sometimes holding my hand. When my parents came back, they looked grim, but wouldn't tell us what they said to Holden's family. It was Sunday, so we spent all the day together, ordered pizza, and watched movies. The night, everyone slept in my room. Nola and my mom in the bed with me, my dad in a chair he'd pulled over. There was no knocking that night, or any night since.
We didn't see much of Holden or his parents for the rest of that week, but by Thursday, there was a moving truck in their driveway. Nola and I had watched them packing up the whole afternoon after school. What sticks with me the most is how tired Holden and his parents looked. All three had the same
Pallor.
All three had the same pallor, grim mouths, and lightless eyes. Even from across the street, I could tell something was very wrong with Holden. Even from across the street, I could tell something was very wrong. Holden and his family were gone before sunset. I remember what the original welcoming committee said to my parents. When we moved in, not everyone who looks at the Whistler dies, but even those that live have the light go out of them, and the rest of their lives are full of misfortune and a million little tragedies. I think Holden's parents must have looked, either to comfort him if they didn't believe, or share the burden if they did. I watched Nola some days, happy and young and alive. I wonder if I had been slower, if she looked out that window that night, would I have looked too, to comfort her, to share the burden? I'm glad I don't have to find out. We still live in that house, in that neighborhood. We still hear our whistler walking past every night. The blessings, the luck, the good things here are too good to leave, but we're careful. We don't have friends over to spend the night anymore, and my dad hides the keys to the blinds very well. Not that I've gone looking. Some things you just don't need to look for. The end.
Well, I thought it was going to be longer, and I think
short and sweet.
There was no answers.
Mm-mm.
So this is one that, like, there is a definite end, but I mean, there is a good ending. But there is no definitive like what was the Whistler or who is the Whistler? What's
I
going
kind of
on?
like that. I think it fits the no sleep
Right.
formula. Like that's a good no sleep to me. Is the questions almost? It's like I really like the detail of when he was like turned to close the blind, but he could feel the heat of like a face being like right next to the
Right.
window. That gets me. It's
And
like
also like why was the window why was the window colder than it like should have been?
I wonder if it's like a ghostly presence.
Yeah,
You know how
like-
they say like a room temperature will drop when.
See, this reminds me, like, I couldn't remember what I was going to reference earlier whenever I said if I think of it, it'll come to me. But it reminds me a lot of, like, maybe, I mean, it's never disclosed what city they're in. So it's like, it's cool to imagine, like, maybe this was a town that was around, like, when the Pilgrims came over or something, and this place was settled, and maybe there was some kind of, like, forest entity or something, and they made a deal with it. Where it's like, you know, you can live here and you can roam at night, but in this specific land, you must like give us good luck. But if anybody,
That's a really cool theory.
Yeah.
I could like see that like
I can see a movie.
yeah, like go back to like a more back in the day time and just have like these settlers and they're like
Maybe this street was like the original homestead. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like the land where the original place was.
I actually really believe that. That's gonna be like my headcanon for this story because that honestly fits so well. But it's like if someone looks at you, you know, it's like their life is pretty much ruined, but it's like you pretty much took them. I don't know.
Basically, by giving this forest spirit or this entity a place to roam free during the witching hour, then he must give them good luck. But if anybody disturbs their peace, then maybe they get to like share some of their bad feelings with them or like curse them or something. So it's kind of like a tit for tat kind of situation.
I wonder like what the extent of what happened. Like I know he said not everyone dies, but like I know he said some people do die, car crashes, etc. So it's like I wonder what the deterioration is on why some people don't die, but your life is going to suck for the rest of your
But
life.
also something I like to think in my headcanon is that, like, let's say that you live 2 streets over and, like, you're traveling at 3 o'clock at night. Like, you don't hear the whistling. You don't see the whistler. What if it's only exclusive to those that live on the street?
Was it the street or the town? I feel like it was a town.
It's a
I
street.
think it was a street. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was.
Which makes it even creepier because, like, you know, oh, well, there must be something special about the street, which kind of goes back to the whole, like, if this was, like, one of the founding cities, then it's, like, that would make it even cooler if this was, like, the OG street
Yeah.
in this town.
Yeah.
But, like, I love the idea of, like, oh, you know, I live 2 blocks over, and I was just driving, maybe I work third shift, and I got off work early, and I'm driving home, and I pass by the street at 3:05, and I see nothing out of the ordinary.
That's a funny thought. And they're like, bro, you cannot work night shift.
So, I mean, that's the only thing
Or
that makes
second
sense to me
shift, I mean.
because, I mean, if they are in a town or a city, like, there had to at least be one time where somebody was outside that didn't live on the street at that time that could have seen something. I think it's even creepier if, like, you only are visited by this entity or spirit if you live on the street. It's almost like whenever you sign that agreement to take that house, you are signing an even bigger agreement that you're unaware of.
Would you live there?
Hell yeah.
I would too. I
Yeah.
was gonna say the same thing. I'm like, if you follow the rules,
But
you
see-
get some good luck. That lady lived to 105. I'm like,
Here's my thing. While I cannot share proof that the supernatural exists, I know that I believe in it. So, like, you will never see me mess with things just because I don't want to risk it. So, like, this is one of those things that if somebody came and told me, like, yeah, it's a little out of the ordinary, but I would be like, you know what? That's a small sacrifice. Oh, I can't look out my window at 3 o'clock in the morning? Fine. For 5 minutes a
2
day?
minutes.
No, it's from 3 o'clock to 3:05. 3:03 to 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
2 minutes. 2 minutes. If I can't look out my window for 2 minutes every day and I have good luck and fortune, shit.
Yeah, I mean, They said that lady lived to 105. You win like radio contest. I bet you could get some good old scratch off tickets.
See, my only problem is that if I were to live on the street, I would have second thoughts about having kids though.
Yeah, because Holden.
Because of Holden here. But then again, if the dad would have just hid his keys, this would have never been a problem.
It's sweet though. It's a good like little parenting kind of moment. Like I love the little detail that when he found out his own kids didn't look, he was almost like, oh, thank God. But then when he looked at Holden, he was like, oh, shoot. It's like he was almost slightly relieved just because his kids didn't look.
Well, it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, there's always extenuating circumstances in real life, but it really does kind of go back to the whole primal thing of dog eat dog, where it's like, oh, it's not my family. Oh, it's not my kids.
Yeah.
You have a series of responsibilities.
It's completely natural that you would.
And he had enough trust in his kids after this long that he was like, I don't need to hide them because they know better.
Yeah.
This story completely hinges upon the fact that like curiosity killed the cat in a way. Like, I know there's more to that adage, but in that specific instance, I feel like this whole story was invented because of the whole idea of like, yeah, you're curious, but only some people are going to be so curious that they look anyway.
What do you theorize this entity looks like? I imagine just like something like lanky, kind of like.
I'm envisioning the Babadook.
The Babadook,
where it's just a pale-faced guy with like crazy hair with a tall top hat, just walking down the street with like a cane whistling.
I'm imagining kind of like almost like a Slender Man, but like more. Like he would have a black face too, but just kind of like lanky, just like moving and like I don't know that just it'd be like a
when the Babadook like jumps down from the corner and you see his face. That's what I'm envisioning. Was pressed up against that.
I could see that too.
I don't know. It's just
that kind of takes back from what I just said because he said he felt like it was like the warmth almost of like a face is like right there, but they're not looking. So. I guess I could kind of lean more on what you're saying.
I'm not saying I'm right.
Nobody.
I would love to see some theories in the comments.
I think it's the forest demon from Smiling Friends.
Well, guys, that was a good story. Short and sweet and to the point. Well, we liked it. Let us know what you think down below in the comments. We've been doing really good about some interactions with our fan base, so let's keep it up. Let's just, get a little community going, which I think we've already done that. So let's keep it growing. Let's keep it growing. Anyway, guys, that's been the story. If you want to go see this, you can head over to reddit.com on r/nosleep. This was done by Grand Theft Moto, and this story is called Something Walks Whistling Past My House Every Night at 3:03. I highly suggest going to check it out in case we broke up some of the mood by us talking. We tried to keep that at a minimal. But if you want to see and stay up to date on all of our real world shenanigans, head over to Instagram. We have a page there at the Horror Den on that app, and also we have a Patreon, Zombie Cat.
Yes, you can subscribe to our Patreon. All funds go straight back into the channel for as low as $5 a month. We all three work we're a team of 4 now. Technically, we all 4 work full-time jobs and really have to crunch time to make this happen, so any funds are highly appreciated. Every penny goes back into the channel, so you'd be supporting at least us. I guess you can say. I was gonna say a good cause, but I was like, I guess it is
supporting us.
If you like us,
if you like us, then please. If you want to support us more, then go for it. Here's the list of our current Patreon members. Woo! Thank you to these people on this list for helping us make all this possible. Well, we have some more big plans coming in the future, and we can't wait to announce them. At this rate, we are probably going to have a poll up soon about what we're doing for our 200 sub special because we've grown so much. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you. We appreciate you stopping by and getting to know us a little better. But keep up to date on all the videos. Like, comment, and subscribe. Go check out our Patreon if you want to. Go follow us on Instagram. But more importantly, stay spooky out there.
Your intellect is as weak as your dollar.
Then something started rapping against all of the windows in the house.
Oh god, you just had to say something.
Okay.
And then the sweat dripped down my balls.
Oh, ski, bump, cut. Okay. I was waiting on. Eventually, it was gonna happen again. Okay.
See, it doesn't help that it says started rapping. Started rapping against all the windows.
They're just chilling in the. They're just like hiding in the dark, and then they hear like, "Oh, ski, move!" Like being played on an MP3 player, being played on a boombox outside the front door.
The spirit's just holding a boombox trying to get them out.
Yes, you may use some of this for bloopers at the end.
If you want. If there's more. I don't know if there's gonna be more. Then something started rapping against all the windows in the house. I was doing so good. And then you laughed.
It's literally so bad.
Oh my god, the spirit's Little John. They open the door and it's just, what? Okay. Then something started rapping against all the windows in the house, then the walls. It was... Damn it! I was almost past it.
I'm just gonna cover my face.
Then something started rapping against all the windows in the house. It's because I saw you laughing behind your closed hand. I just saw your shoulders go. Oh shit. Okay. Then something started rapping against all the windows in the house. Then the I saw you that time.
There's a wall. This shit was awesome.
Last time it was
Little sound bites.
Whoa.
Yeah.